Okay, so the bad news is you broke a blade at practice. But the good news is that Sid gave you a new one right away. Clearly this is a fictional scenario. But what do you do once you get the new blade? Okay, so this is an old blade, and so it's already bent and cut. So when you get your new blade, it's going to be straight. So the first thing you want to do, this is the most involved part of setting a blade up. So we're just going to wrap the spaghetti so it stays out of the way. Okay, this is how to put a new blade together. I'm going to wrap the spaghetti and pretend it stays out of the way. So you're going to take your handle and you're going to slip it on there. And usually the metal part will poke out here. And so you can use a piece of chalk, a Sharpie, a marker, whatever, and mark right at the top of the handle. If you are using a nut that looks like this, where you put the tightener inside, then you can cut a little bit below your mark with the red bolt cutters in the cage. If you're using the other style where it goes around the outside, then you can keep it at your mark, but it's less sensitive to that. So you've made your mark, and then you want to put the blade into the vise so that you only have about a quarter inch, about half an inch exposed between the end of the vise and the beginning of the blade. So I usually clamp it so the edge of the vise is right about there. And then you want to lay your forearm right along it. And if you're right-handed, the wire is on top here, by the way. The wire's on top and out of the way of the vise. And you're going to want to bend it in or to the left. And then that's with the wire facing up. And then you're going to turn it so the wire faces to the right side, and you're going to pull it so that the blade bends down, because you want it to bend. You can see me. If I'm on guard, if you're on guard, you want it to bend in, and you want it to bend down. So that's how you're going to bend your handle. It's going to take a little bit of force. You're not going to break it. Only in rare cases do you break it. But that's so that you can hit on target more accurately, and it's better. Okay. That's going to take a little bit of elbow juice, but when in doubt, ask a teammate who's done it before. They're all over. Okay, and so now it comes to cutting it. So if you can find one of the outside hex nuts in the cage in a drawer, possibly, then what you want to do is you want to just screw it on so that it goes down below your mark, and then you're going to take your blade to the bolt cutters and either at or a little bit below your mark, preferably a little bit below your mark, line that up so that's on the cutting surface, and you're going to try and make the blade as square to the bolt cutters as possible, so that you're not cutting at a wonky angle, so that the cut doesn't end up like this, because then it's really hard to thread onto that. So once you have it aligned, you're going to chomp down on the bolt cutters deliberately, and it's going to take a little bit of elbow grease, but it'll cut eventually. So now you're left with a piece that looks like this. You've already bent it, you've already cut it, and you have the nut on there. So a lot of times after you cut it, it's going to be a little bit jagged at the top. So the first thing you can do is try just unscrewing the nut, but you're probably going to hit some resistance as you get up towards the top because you just cut it. You just did bad thing, you just cut it so it's all the threads are messed up. So one thing you can do is you can put it in the vise standing up, and you can take a file and file where it looks like the metal is sticking over the edge and digging into impeding the motion of the nut. Or you can use there's a device in the cage. Okay, so there's a device in the cage that looks like this, except drawn better. And that's a thread cleaner. And so you can, again, put the blade in the vise like this, and then try and thread the thread cleaner onto it. And then once you get it started, just run it back and forth to clean it up. You're going to hit some resistance at first, but hopefully it should clean out those threads. And you might need to alternate between the thread cleaner and using the file in order to get this nut to unscrew nicely. That takes a little bit of work. But once you do that, you're ready to finish assembling the weapon. So you have the spaghetti. You always want to keep that out of the way, and you don't want to break it off right here because then you have to rewire. So we're going to start with assembly. So the first thing we put on is the bell guard. Notice that there's a notch at the top where the wire should go. You can see that at the top there. And so with it in the vise, we're going to do the best we can here. But you're going to put it on so that you can feed the wire through first. And then make sure that that wire is in the notch. If it is not in the notch, you will smash the wire and have to rewire your blade. And it will be bad. Okay, so now you've successfully got your bell guard on. You want to double check and make sure that the wire is in that notch. That wire should always be in the notch. It should never be anywhere except the notch. Okay, the next thing to go on is the socket. So you can see that this has 2 notches. You're always going for right-handed and left-handed. Always make sure that the wire is in the notch. Do not smash the wire. So you again want to put the wire through first, and then thread the socket onto the blade. Hard to do this one-handed, but we're going to do the best. And then that. And so once you have it on there, you're going to double check and make sure that the wire is in the notch. So you can still see the wire poking through there. What I do not want you to do is to put your wire out the side here, think that it'll be fine, and just put the socket on like that. Because when you tighten down, so a bad thing is to look like this, where the wire is clearly going to be smashed. You will have to rewire your blade and you'll be sad. So just put it through the notch, follow it around, and this simple step will save you a lot of trouble, because if the wire is smashed, it can either your blade will be going constantly off target, your blade won't be going off at all, it'll be hard to diagnose and even harder to fix, or very labor intensive to fix. Okay, at this point you can assemble the socket. It's actually easiest at this point. So like we showed in the other video, you want to sandpaper the wire to get the fuzz and the shellac off. Make sure you do that very well. There should be sandpaper in the cage. A lot of people like to use lighters to just burn it off, but then they never end up getting it all off, and it's just more of a distraction than anything. They just are looking for an excuse to burn things, and it's just better to use sandpaper. So just sandpaper it off, and then stick it in above the plastic part and below the head of the screw. It usually is best if you wind in a clockwise direction, but you'll figure it out. Tighten it down, and that'll be good. Okay, I'm not doing this because this is just a piece of spaghetti I taped to my old broken blade. Okay, the next 2 things to go on are the handle and the bell pad. So what I like to do is I like to put the bell pad on the grip, because I have big enough bell pad, or big enough holes in my bell pads, I can do this. If you don't, then you can just put the bell pad on and then put the grip over it. Important thing about your grip is, see the little notch? The notch that we've been talking about forever? Okay, the wire needs to go in there. Otherwise, you're going to smash the wire and you're going to have to rewire your blade, but it's going to take you a lot of time to figure out that that's what's wrong. So just, if you can put your bell pad, once you have it on there, pull your bell pad up to see that your wire is comfortably in that notch. You can see how it just like flows out naturally, and there's nothing looking like it's going to crush the wire. So you do that. Well, next you want to find a lock washer and your nut. So those are the next two things to go on. Okay, now that you have your lock washer will go on first. The easiest way to put it on is to take a small screwdriver, pick up the lock washer on the small screwdriver, and then put it so the point of the screwdriver touches the blade, the threaded part of the blade, and just let it drop down. And it'll drop down very nicely. You won't have to play any games of hunting up the washer that doesn't go in properly. So you're going to do that, and then you're going to just screw on your pommel nut. The important things with screwing on the pommel nut is you want to make sure it starts straight. So it's because you don't want to cross thread it. So I'm having a little bit of trouble getting this one started. So I'm just going to take my pommel nut and double check and make sure it'll start straight for me. So I'm just going to screw it on right away. Make sure it starts. Okay, that looks nice and square. It's not, sometimes when they'll start, they'll be like this. If you see it started like this is bad. You want to like take it off as easily as you can and then try and start it again. And it starts straight, it looks like this. It starts not straight, it looks like that, and it will be very hard to screw in. So this is good. This is not good. Okay. You can always take the handle off and double check to make sure it starts straight, and then put the handle back on and screw it in, just to double check, because you don't want to. That will make your blade, if you cross thread it too severely, it'll make your blade unusable, and it's new, so you don't want to do that. So I'm just going to put the handle back on again, making sure the notch lines up, making sure my wire is in all of the notches, not being pinched anywhere. I'm going to drop the lock washer down, and then I am going to use my tightener and tighten it down. A little bit harder for me. Yep, so just drop it in, and if at the end of tightening it down as much as you can, your blade still wiggles back and forth, just add a couple extra lock washers, just to give it a little bit extra space and tighten it up. Other than that, I think that's it. Yep, so then you just want to double check and make sure it works. This is if Sid has already given you a wired blade. If the blade doesn't have a wire on it, obviously you're going to need to rewire, which is a whole nother very long, lengthy video. But other than that, you should be good to go.